All right, Dr. P. Well, first I want to introduce the podcast. It's called the Truth NC Podcast. This is where we have a discussion between for-profits and non-profits in the community to see if there's actually a disconnect between the for-profits and their community. So first I want to thank you for joining on and being a guest on the podcast. First, I would like to start off by actually asking you to present to us your business. I know it's called the Dr. PK Solutions company, so I would like to gain some more information about what you actually do.
All right. Well, thank you, Shamil, for having me on your podcast. Very excited to be here. So, as Shamil mentioned, I go by Dr. P. My full name is Dr. Priscilla Kuser. I am the founder and CEO of Priscilla Kuser Consulting Solutions. And in my company, we are a coaching, consulting, training, and development based company focusing on working with micro business owners. And if you're wondering what the hell is a micro business owner, a micro business owner is anyone who owns a business that has less than 10 employees. So for a lot of people listening to this podcast, that might very well be you. And if it's just you, you're still considered a micro business. And micro businesses have their intentions are either staying small or growing to X amount of employees over the next coming years, right? Because everybody has different focus. And while working with micro business owners and their teams, I help them with scaling their businesses by improving their goals, their processes, and operations. So those are basically those things that a lot of people kind of take for granted and may not spend enough time developing because they're so focused on marketing and they're so focused on getting clients that they're not taking the time to really sit and look at what are my goals for the company and how I'm going to reach them. So I help you with understanding what are the goals for your company, how you're going to reach them, and building up the processes so that you can be successful.
Okay, that sounds good to me. So my first question is because you are business centered, I wanted to learn about the connection that you actually have with the nonprofit industry, and then if within that connection between your for profit, the nonprofit, do you actually see a disconnect between those different sectors?
So my involvement with the nonprofit sector right now is nonprofits are my clients as well because I work with nonprofit organizations to help them with structuring their nonprofit or even when they're getting started. Because a lot of nonprofits start for a personal reason, and then from that personal reason, they're trying to find other people in a similar situation to help them, but they're not necessarily business minded. They just know the community issue they want to solve, which is a great thing, but we also need to realize you're also a business. So really helping them structure themselves as a business so that they can, grow from the idea to being very successful as a nonprofit. So I have nonprofits as clients, but I also am a board member of a nonprofit here in Austin because I'm located in Austin, Texas. And the nonprofit that I'm a member of is called Jams Connections. So I am one of their board members and I am the development coordinator for that nonprofit. And as a development coordinator, I do the things I love to do, and that's help develop them as a business and helping them put the necessary structures and features in place so that they can be as competitive as a for-profit, or also have that professionalism that you normally would see out of a for-profit that sometimes people don't think that nonprofits are businesses. So really helping them to structure themselves very competitively. And through Jams Connections, we do some community events. So I do attend those events. I participate in the events. If we have fundraisers that are virtual fundraisers, also help with promoting that event to my personal network and also to my business network. And that is how I'm helping to support Jams Connections. And through my company, Priscilla Kuser Consulting Solutions, we've actually partnered up with the Weiss Scholarship Foundation, which is another nonprofit. And when individuals work with my company, a percentage of the money they pay for services goes towards the Weiss Scholarship Foundation. And the Weiss Scholarship Foundation provides education to children in Dago, Kenya. So I'm very passionate about education. I believe education is powerful and everybody should have the education that they need so they can be successful. So that's one of the reasons why I partnered up with the White Scholarship Foundation. And I forgot to mention Jams Connections. What we do in Jams Connections is that Jams Connections helps other nonprofits to be successful. And how they do that is that they help them with a fundraising aspect. Because let's be honest, as a nonprofit, it can be quite difficult to raise funds, right? And those events can be overwhelming and you're not quite sure where to go, how to start. And Jams Connections helps you with that. Right now we are in the Austin area, and that's where the focus is on, helping nonprofits in the Austin area, get that voice and get that visibility in the community by teaming up with them to help them with organizing their events, and also with providing education. We also do some fun things, moves event where, encouraging people to get up, move, do some exercise, whether it's walking, riding, running, you name it. So we also do, those pushes for, wellness as well.
Okay, and so throughout all of your partnerships with different nonprofits, would you say that you do see like a disconnect between the community and the nonprofits that you're actually helping, or do you think they're pretty much meeting that goal of 100%?
I would say it really depends on so many factors, because like with Jams Connections, their founder is out in the public and she goes to a lot of networking events and she's sharing about what Jams Connections does to build those partnerships with for-profit. Because at the end of it, being for-profit, you're not always aware of what nonprofits are out there, right? And even if somebody tells you about a nonprofit, you just hear about the name, but you don't necessarily know their mission, their vision, their purpose. So there's a lot of questions that you want to ask, and it's not always easy to figure out who to ask those questions to. And for some nonprofits, again, some individuals sit and decide, hey, I want to create a nonprofit. They might file their necessary paperwork with Secretary of State, but they themselves aren't clear on where they want the nonprofit to go. So what I've seen in talking with individuals who have started different nonprofits in different states is that it is difficult for them to speak to a for-profit business because they're still having issues trying to figure out how to phrase what the hell do I do, or why am I doing this? And then also to really convince the for-profit, how can you help me? Because if you can't share with the for-profit how they can help you, then why would they want to give you money?
Yes.
So it's really a matter of, you got to first understand who you are as a nonprofit, know your vision, know your mission, know your values that you have. And that makes it easier when you talk to the for-profit space. I'm not saying that the first person you talk to and share your vision and mission and values with is going to give you money, but they might give you some insight or might give you 5 more minutes longer in a conversation than you would have had if you came to them disorganized. So it can help you with opening up some doors. The first person might not give you money, but they might refer you to a business that aligns better with your mission. Because that's the other thing that I've seen from my observation with the current nonprofits I'm involved with, and also talking to nonprofit founders, is that alignment. Because you got to understand what your nonprofit stands for. Then you have to do your research to see which for-profit companies align with those values. Because if there's no alignment, chances are they're not going to want to give you money. But if you can find a nonprofit that aligns with what you want to be doing, then you are in a much better position for them to give you money. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but you're in a much better position. So for instance, if you're a nonprofit who is focused on health and wellness, and that is what you want to be promoting in the community, then I would highly recommend you do some research to the companies in your community and see which one of them really see health and wellness at the forefront of helping their employees, because they're more likely to want to team up with you. But if you go to a for-profit company that there's nothing about health and wellness as a priority, then chances are they might not want to team up with you. Similarly, education. There are different facets of education, right? But if you find a for-profit that education is important for them, then you could be in a much better position for them to want to support your organization. Same thing for mental health, so they're all different types of things, and that you want to make sure you do your research so that you know that you are reaching out to for-profits that align with your nonprofit's vision, mission, and values.
That is so good. I wanted to go back and watch this.
But hey, that's the beauty about video. You got the video, but your listeners are listening to it on the podcast, so they could go back and hit the replay. So that's the beauty about the recordings.
Yes, this is so good to me. Okay. So I wanted to know, within the for-profit industry, I know there's a lot of competition. So I wanted to know, for your business, what actually make you guys unique in your own personal industry from your actual competitors?
I tell most people what makes it unique is me. Hey, because I believe each of us is unique, right? So, but being for real, from a business point of view, it was hard to really look at what could make myself unique, because at the end of the day, I founded my own company, right? So I was like, what about this is going to make it unique? And I brought into my company a lot of qualities that I have as an individual, and I use that to develop my company. So my background and my approach to working with different clients is based on my background in psychology, industrial organizational psychology, and also in school psychology. And there are not very many coaches and consultants out there who might hold a degree in industrial organizational psychology at the doctoral level, because I have my doctorate in industrial organizational psychology, and I've spent about 10 years practicing in K-12 schools as a school psychologist, special education administrator. I'm still a school psychology adjunct faculty for Nova Southeastern University. That's where I graduated from. Go Sharks! Down in South Florida. So for me, I have that teaching experience. Right? I have that understanding of curriculum and how to adjust curriculum to meet the needs of learners. And with school psychology, I understand the assessment process to be able to identify people's learning styles, to be able to identify their strengths, their weaknesses, to understand how academics play a role in what we do. And I know for some of the listeners here, they might be like, academics, I ain't in school no more. I'm an adult, right? What academics? But when I say academics, I'm talking about reading, writing, and math. Regardless, every single day, we do some element of reading, writing, and math in all of our interactions. And there's some things that we run away from and some things we run towards. So because I understand how we acquire reading, writing, and math skills, that helps me help my clients with understanding some areas where they get a lot of frustration and some areas where they get a lot of joy. And the same thing with understanding social and emotional functioning and behavioral functioning as well. And for me, because of that, again, I can help support my clients with knowing their strengths, knowing their areas of weakness, and helping them really maximize on that strength. Because coaching is really a strength-based process. And if you don't know your strengths, then how the hell are you going to use them, right? So to be able to identify what your strengths are and really help you align them with your role in your company. And for some of my clients, it might mean changing their role in their company. Because when you found the company, you want to be the CEO, right? As a nonprofit founder, you're like, yes, I'm going to be executive director. Yes, that's what I want to do. But sometimes when you look at your strengths, maybe your strengths don't align with being the executive director, but they can align with community outreach. And guess what? Nobody can change the fact that you are the founder of that nonprofit. Nobody will ever change that. So what? You're not the executive director. You're the community outreach person, and you're banging good at that, and therefore you're starting to see growth. And then you can put someone in the executive director position who has strengths in that area. So for me, I have the skill set to really help individuals understand about themselves, understand their strengths, understand about some emotion, because we go through that depression and anxiety sometimes, the self-defeating talk that we have sometimes those negative thinking that might come into play, looking at motivation, looking at satisfaction, looking at burnout, and really helping you craft a plan to overcome those obstacles so that you can maximize on moving forward. So for me, I know that's a long-winded way to answer your question about what makes my company unique, but what others have said to me, other for-profits who've been around for more than 10 years and they've been making more than $10 million in revenue, they've said to me, what makes my company unique is really that combination of incorporating school psychology experience and knowledge with industrial organizational practices and helping companies to really structure themselves as an organization while understanding the individual parts and moving forward while still being a micro business. So I love doing what I do.
That's good. That's amazing. So being that you work with a lot of clients, I want to know, have you noticed some things when they're actually working with the community, of some things that they can actually do to get the community more involved?
Some of them have community in mind and some of them don't. Because a lot of for-profits are focused on getting customers, getting customers to buy their product or buy their service. And they're not so much focused on getting out into the community to help. Because for them, to get out into the communities, they have to give money, to the nonprofit. And they themselves as a company are trying to get money. So if they're trying to get money, then how are they going to be giving money? And conversations I've been in with some business owners for profit is that when you get out into the community and you also are genuine about your connections, you're not just going out into a community event saying, hey, I'm going to go and pick up 10 clients, because people are going to know that you're there for the wrong reasons. But if you're going out to an event to build genuine connections in your community, that makes a huge, huge difference. And that also impacts how people interact with you. So going to do a quick search on Eventbrite or Meetup, see what's happening in your community. I'm not saying you got to go to all the events, but pick a few of those events to go to. And you don't necessarily have to set up a booth as a for-profit, but you can just go as a member of the community that you live in to see what is happening out there. And you'll be amazed. And I've had clients who are amazed at who they meet at some of those events that can then go on to be business partnerships, or might even come on as clients for themselves, or they might actually look at how they can support that nonprofit to grow even bigger if it's a nonprofit who hosted the event. So there are different ways that you can get involved. The unfortunate thing is that a lot of business owners, when they start, they're not thinking about community involvement.
Gotcha. So based on some of the clients that you actually have, what are some challenges that you actually seen that they have came across and that they had to face? And then what steps did they actually take to overcome some of those challenges?
One of the biggest ones is understanding what business coaching is, because a lot of people seem to think, in my experience, a lot of people have thought that business coaching is like having your own personal mentor, and that's not what it is, And then also the difference between a coach and a consultant, because again, people hear business coach, they somehow think you're a consultant, or they somehow think you're a mentor. But each one of those three things are three different things, right? And unfortunately, people flip-flop them, and then you can get confused. Kind of like psychologists and psychiatrists, people flip-flop those too, and people get confused with them, right? And for me, my first challenge is usually helping them see the difference between a coach, a mentor, and a consultant. And the reason why I go through that process is because them understanding the difference can help them see which one they need to align with the problem they're facing. Because if you go and hire a coach and this coach is providing business coaching, but is not providing the mentoring that you're looking for, you're going to walk away thinking, what a waste of money, business coaches suck. When really and truly, you didn't need a coach, you needed a mentor. So you understanding the difference between the three and then looking at your needs helps tremendously in making sure you're making the right investment for you and
Could you
your
give us a
company.
short
And
breakdown of the different three?
oh my gosh, for you, Shamil, Shamil, I will do that for you really quick. So consultants usually give you advice, and they're experts in the field, and they give you advice, and you take it or you don't, right? There are different models within consultation, and not everybody's familiar with all the different models, and not going to go through all the models here, but just know there are different models for consultation, and they may or may not include follow-up. So depending on where some of your listeners are working right now, they might remember a time when they went to a training and this consultant came in and gave a whole staff training, and then they never saw the consultant ever again, right? For a lot of us, we might remember that situation, because that consultant was hired by the organization to give advice and solutions on a specific problem,
Yeah.
and then they're gone, right? So that is something a lot of us may have experienced. And then with mentoring is usually a process where someone is sharing with you their experiences, and you're going to learn from their experiences. And they don't necessarily customize it. They're saying to you, hey, in order to buy a house, here are the steps I went through, so here are the steps you're going to go through. And they guide you through those steps, because that's what they know, right? And with coach, one of the things I share with people is, if you've ever been involved in athletics, or you're a fan of athletics, whether it's football or basketball, American football or soccer. I'm from Barbados. It's all about soccer is the real football. Had to put a plug in there for that. Soccer is the real football. Regardless of the sport you were involved in, it could have been tennis, it could have been gymnastics, hey, it could have been dancing. Doesn't matter. Whatever was the sport you're involved in, you had a coach. And that person may or may not have been involved in that sport, but they understand what's involved for you to be successful. So if you are a big football fan here in the US and you have your team that you back religiously, same thing with basketball, when you go and you look into the coaches for those sports, not all of them may have won state championships, but they were able to take a team, to coach a team to the state championships. They were able to coach a team to win, NFL. As much as I know, what do you call it? Super Bowl. To win the Super Bowl championship, right? Because they were able to do that, or NBA championship, or MLB championship. And what they did was they took the members of their team, looked at their strengths, placed them in the right roles, helped them to see how to utilize their skill sets in those roles so that they can work together as a team to win. So that's what a coach does. A coach is very much so strength focused, and some of the experiences the coach may have gone through, some of them they may not have, but they're looking at your situation and helping you plug in where you need so that you can be successful.
Okay.
Oh, Shamil, I actually have a course I'm working on that I'm going to be launching by the end of August that actually talks about the differences of these three in by far more detail, so people can make sure that they're signing up for what they truly need. Yes. So funny you should ask that question. I'm like, wait, I do have a course on that one. I'll share it with you when I launch it, Shamil. I'll share it with you.
I appreciate it. Okay, so okay, so what do you think you can do for Dr. PK Solutions to actually get y'all to operate at y'all highest peak, or do you think you're already there?
I know I'm not at my highest peak. I am working towards it. That's what strategic planning is for. So for me, my strategic plan is a big part of what I do in my company, and making sure I'm doing my program evaluations I do some at the end of the day, then I have certain ones I do at the end of the week, every week, and then at the end of the month, because that evaluation helps me to see where I am in relation to my goals, what I'm missing, what adjustments I need to make. and how close am I to actually achieving those strategic goals that I set out in my strategic plan. So for me, I'm continuing to work through it. Just like anybody else have experienced some obstacles, they can hit you hard, they can knock you down flat on your face. But the thing is that you got to get back up. You got to get back up. And, my support system around me, that helps me with getting back up. And it doesn't matter if it's just one person, doesn't matter if 5 people. You don't need 20 or 30 people to be your support system. You just, sometimes it just takes one. And for people who don't have one, maybe that's the time you need to reach out to a mental health provider so that they can be your support system in terms of helping you understand what's going on. Because when we get knocked down, it's rough. It's rough. And you feel like giving up and walking away from this and you're like, to hell with this shit. I got to do something else. I'm done. I can't do this no more. But when you share with your support system and not bullshit them when they ask you, how you doing? I'm fine. And you know full well you're not fine. When you be honest with them and share with them what's going through. And a true support system is non-judgmental. I don't mean people in your life who are going to judge you and keep telling you should stop. Then why are you doing that? That's not a support system. A true support system is going to listen to you, and they know you. They know you better than anybody, so they can really help remind you of why you even got started in the first place, and it gives you that information that you may have forgotten. And your support system can also remind you of where you were and how far you've come. And when you hear it from somebody else, you're like, wow, I have done a lot. So it really helps you to really pick yourself up off of the ground and really look at, okay, this is just a roadblock. I can get over this. This is just a roadblock. But we got to remember, and for me, that's something I remind myself about too, is like, I have to remember I have the support system and I need to actually use the support system. Because sometimes you want to take it on and you're like, I could do this. When sometimes, instead of doing it, I can do this, reaching out to your support system can alleviate some of that pressure and really help you avoid feeling burned out or frustrated or even depressed, because you can run your ideas by someone else, and you get a little pick-me-upper in the process.
You do. I want to ask you, would there be one question that you would have wished that I would have asked you, and then how would you have answered that question?
One question I wish you had asked me and that you haven't asked, and then how I would answer that question. Okay. Well, given the scope of your podcast, for me, and this is the first time I'm on your podcast, I would say that the questions you asked were appropriate, because you wanted to find out about, the connections and disconnections between for-profit and nonprofit world. And I was fine with the questions you asked. Had nothing wrong with it. I guess one of the questions you can consider asking is asking a for-profit, do you know of the nonprofits in your area? Because that could be a question to ask, because a lot of them might not know of nonprofits in their area. Or have you been contacted by a nonprofit in your area, since you're looking at that connection?
Okay. And then what is actually next for Dr. PK Solutions? What should we be looking out for?
What is next for me? Oh my gosh, so much going on. What I would say is my coaching program, my coaching platform, my course platform, I should say, not my coaching platform. So I do offer coaching, and I also offer consulting, training, and development. So under the training and development arm of my company, I have a training platform called SOAR Training Institute. And on that platform, you're going to have access to courses that covers a wide range of things that, new business owners and existing business owners can benefit from. As I mentioned to you before, one of the courses that are going to be on there is going to be about business coaching. What is it and why you need it? Then there's going to be another one on there about time management. And then there's going to be one later on in the year on starting a business. And all the courses, there's a lot of research that I have put into it to help people not have to struggle through the process, because it's so overwhelming, and you're not quite sure what is relevant and what is not relevant to you. So for instance, like the business coaching one, what it is and why you need it, that one in particular, I actually researched over 100 different resources in order to put that course together, to really give people the information they need. And as I mentioned, a section in that course talks about the difference between coaching, consulting, and mentoring. So it's really putting the effort into explaining the difference. And I also describe different kinds of coaching, because people hear about business coach, but they don't realize that there are more than 20 different types of coaching that you can get as a business owner, or as a business itself. So really going through some information about different types of coaching, to give people what they need so that they don't have to suffer through. And because research is a strength of mine, and I've always been complimented on my research skills, I'm using it to help others, because not everybody can do the same search that I can do on Google and get the same hits. And that's something some of my clients have said to me, because I would say to them, hey, just look up XYZ. And they're like, but I didn't find what you told me. So when I show them, hey, okay, here's some keywords that you can put into the search, they're like, oh, I never would have thought about that. So because I have that skill set, I'm just taking my skill set to share with others.
Good. Do you have any questions for me?
No, my dear, because you and I talked before, so I was able to ask my questions to you to learn about your nonprofit. So I'm aware of your nonprofit for sure. I'm very appreciative of being here.
Yes,
on your
ma'am. I do want to thank you for coming on the podcast. This has been one of the most informational, knowledgeable podcast shows I've had since I started. And I just want to say thank you for sharing all of that wisdom. It will really help out a lot of other nonprofits and for-profits. I did want to let y'all know that this podcast can be found on Anointed Hand Ministries YouTube channel. The link will be below, and I will also put Dr. PK's link to her website and her services below, also in the description box. If there's nothing else, I want to thank you for coming on, and I hope that you have a blessed day.
Thank you, Shamil. Same to you. Thank you, Shamil. Same to you. Bye.